Welcome, SUB30. How we doing? Hey, greet somebody, find a seat, say hey, be kind, do your thing. Got kind of a packed house tonight. Well, my name is Cole Surrett. I am a intern here at Guts Church. Thank you guys for coming. Do we have any new people, new guests out there tonight? Anybody? No hands? We had a few last week, so thank you guys for braving the storm and making it out tonight. We are in week 2 of our relationship series. We're in the month of February, so naturally we have to talk about relationships and whether you're single, married. I probably have very few. We have a few married people in here. Who's married? Raise your hand. Yeah, baby. Come on. So this side of the room, we have no married people over here. Oh, you're married. Okay, good. Well, like I said, we're in week 2 of relationships. Last week we had the Millers up here talking. We have the privilege tonight of hearing from Pastor Taylor and Cassidy Shear. Yeah, give it up for them real quick. They're double dipping. They were in main service tonight too. So we're excited and honored to have them speaking tonight. They've been married for 10 years. That's crazy. Pastor Taylor just turned 39 yesterday, which we're gonna have to help him up on the stage. I think knees are starting to get creaky, but man, I'm excited. Get your notebooks ready, and please help me welcome Pastor Taylor and Cassidy Shear.
Hello, everyone. Young bucks. You guys are so young. I feel so old in here. I'm only 33, so I'm barely above 30 anyways. I'm Cassidy. He's Taylor. We'll start by telling you guys...
You're about to get a very real look at relationships.
I was going to say, we should start the night off by saying, especially coming right off the heels of the Millers, we are we are not a date your spouse, lovey-dovey kind of couple. We are as easy, simple, not that that's not easy. That's just not our personalities. Our marriage personality is, I'll let you know when I need you. And you do the same. And there's not a lot of fluff, not a lot of hand-holding. None, really. We have 5 kids, though, so we do love each other.
So stupid.
Well, okay. I'll start with that. So we have 5 kids, 8, 7, 5, 3, 1. We've been married, it'll be 11 years in April, actually, which is really gross because that's over a decade. How are we that old? But we met here at the church. I was in my senior year, second semester of college, and was working a nightmare. You guys are so young, you probably don't even know what the nightmare was, but we used to do like a haunted house type thing. And I was doing a nightmare work night, and he came up to me. I knew who he was, obviously, having been at the church.
Obviously.
But didn't know him, so he came up and was like, hey, to me and my sister, and he was like, do you guys have jobs? I need cute girls to tell guys that jeans look good on them. He owned a men's clothing store at the time. And I was like, actually, I do have a job, and I'm Cassidy, nice to meet you. And he was like, all right, cool. And he left. And my mom and I went 2 months later then to shop at his store for Christmas, and went in, and he was in bright yellow, neon yellow, like chino pants, a Thunder t-shirt, and like some type of crazy Jordan, because he used to love Jordans. And I was like, this is a look. And we left the store, and my mom goes, why do you not date him? And I was like, Mom, he has a girlfriend. She goes, they're not married yet. And that's actually one of my points tonight. And I was like, okay, you're right, but I didn't pursue. And that was in December. March, he messaged me on Facebook, because we're that old. Slid into the DMs before they were DMs, and it was an inbox. And we went on our first date April 5th, And we got married the next year, April 26th. So we were dated for 7 months, we're engaged for 5, and then 11 years later, 5 kids later, here we are, still just loving life, loving each other. So, anything else to add to that?
No, I thought you said it perfectly.
Thank you.
No, but what we're going to talk about tonight, again, you're getting very real, very raw, because I think that's what's applicable. And the thought process so I am the executive pastor here at Guts Church, and I oversee SUB30. So when we were talking about kind of the plan, I really liked where this was headed because the couples that you're going to be hearing from this month, everybody's very different, but everybody has made it work. Everybody has a healthy relationship, and I think that is key to hear when you are dating, engaged, newly married, whatever it is, that there's not a one-size-fits-all to what is a good, godly relationship, what is a good, healthy relationship. You make it work. You're 2 individuals coming in. It doesn't make sense. Like, I remember for me and when we got back from our honeymoon, we moved into my house, and it was...
That Cole lives in now.
That Cole lives, yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys know that Cole got engaged last weekend? He got engaged, and Ellie's here. Stand up, Ellie. Stand up, Ellie.
It wasn't a suggestion, Ellie. Stand up. Cole,
And
we'll
I
talk about
introduced
this
them.
later.
I introduced them, so if you're single, I've got a
She's
pretty
one
good
for one.
I've got a pretty good track record.
100%. But no, she moved in, and it was like, wait, why are you still here the next morning? I remember thinking that, like, it's a very different deal. So I hope that what we communicate, there's stuff that you hear, hopefully that you can apply to your relationship or your future relationships, but then there is not a one-size-fits-all. There are foundational things that I think have to be standard for a healthy relationship. But then it's not a one-size-fits-all. You figure out each other's personalities. You realize, and we'll get into this, but one of our big things is we don't major on the minors. Stuff's not really that big of a deal, so don't make that. I mean, I was talking with Andrew Nunez back here, and I just said, and just so you guys know, we're gonna open up for questions here pretty quick. And again, because I was thinking back, okay, 10 years ago, what did I care about? I don't know if I could give you a good answer. Because in all reality, it doesn't matter today. There are a few things that are foundational things that, yes, we stand on, but it's not a one-size-fits-all, and so I hope that that's what we communicate. So I think we'll communicate some stuff here that you'll be able to interpret that's personal, or we will say this is a standard, you don't do this.
Well, and we can kind of start there. I'll also say sarcasm is like our number 1 love language, so if you haven't caught on to that. Standards. I think that kind of starts, and that goes through when you're single, into when you're engaged, into when you're married. When I don't even remember how old I wrote this like hymn list that was like the standard of things that I looked for in a guy. Have any of you girls done that? Yeah? You keep it hidden?
No one wants to admit it.
I still have mine. It's not saying like you're going to marry the guy that's next to you. It's just saying like what
if he doesn't fit it and they're dating?
Then outies. That's what I'm saying. You got to be really honest, girls, when you're dating. Guys, if you know, so here's the thing. Pastor Bill says it all the time. It's a green light until it's a red light. And especially in dating, you've got to be in tune with the Holy Spirit. You've got to be in tune with the red light and the green light. Because if it's a red light, it is no longer like, let's just maybe take a beat. Let's just, like, we're still together, but that's a red light. That means this is done. And it may feel like the end of the world, but I can tell you now, we know, very closely a couple that we're friends with that when we were dating, they were dating, and she said, honestly, he said to her, when are you going to stop settling? And she just broke down crying immediately and was like, oh my gosh, like he read her mail. And then she said the moment they went and got engaged, it was a surprise engagement to everyone, family, friends, everyone. And she said the moment he asked, she literally heard internally God be like, no. And she said yes anyways, and she was like, my knees buckled, I was sweating. Like, you can look at pictures and know, like, he said no, and you went right past it. You blew through that red light. And they have been married now for a few years, but it has been the most trying marriage that I've ever seen. She is dedicated to making this, like, she loves the Lord, and she is dedicated to making it work. But what Pastor Bill always says, like, is it God's best for you? So you can make any relationship work, but do not blow through the red lights. When you are dating, that is like the easiest get out of jail free card. You are not committed, you are not married until you are actually married. And I mean, if it's the day before the wedding and you know, get out, because breaking up with someone is so much easier. We've never gone through a divorce, but then getting a divorce, then involving children. So that's
breaking the covenant.
Yeah, and
Marriage
that's getting
is a
really
covenant with
deep into that hit heavy real quick. But I think standards going into that is like, you have to have standards.
Guard your heart.
What?
Guard your heart with
Yeah,
those
that was-
standards.
Yeah, and I think you have to go and you write the standards, and you have to know personally, this is where I'm going, in life. You have to know where your goals are in life. And that's kind of part of some of the things I wrote down is like, when you're dating someone, you don't know how much money they're going to make. You don't know if they're going to be bald in 10 years. I am at that age now where I have seen ex-boyfriends, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God they have no hair. And Taylor still has a full head of hair. You don't know what they're going to look like later. You don't know what their job's going to be, but you do have to know that they're driven, that they're not lazy, that they're committed to you, that they're committed to their family, that they're committed to whatever. That doesn't change. So it's character qualities that I would make on this list, and I literally would write them down. I would put it in front of you. It's something that I get to show our daughters, like, look at the list that I had. And it is not, he drove a, F-250 and blah, blah, blah. Because, again, you don't know what car he's going to have in 10 years. That can change. It's not he has to have brown hair. It could fall out. You could just be praying now that your husband has a full head of hair, too. God cares about what you care about. So I think setting standards for yourself and what you expect in a spouse is very, very important from the jump.
No, I agree. And when you're dating, guard your heart. Don't give your heart away. Until you say I do, you do not give your heart away. And I think that is when we were dating, there was a common theme of pray together.
This was like that's probably still a thing.
Yeah,
like that's
pray
an
together.
intimate thing, is prayer.
And I was raised that you don't pray with a girlfriend. Just one-on-one, we're not praying. That is an intimate thing, and I'm revealing my heart to the Lord. That is not guarding your heart with a girlfriend. And in reality, it was something I stood on, and it paid off in the end, because then that heart was guarded, where then she had my whole heart, that I had given pieces away, because you don't get those back. Now, we pray together all the time. I'm not saying don't ever do that, but until you say I do, you are your own person. But when you say I do, two become one.
I think it was right after we got engaged. You were like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I went to pray with him one time. First of all, I said, Dear Jesus, which this is just a lesson to all of you all in the Guts Church. The Shears will correct.
In the Bible, not just God's
I'm so
church.
sorry. They'll correct you on the spot. You're not praying to Jesus, you're praying to the Lord.
Yep, in Jesus'
name. So he
name,
stopped
no.
me, and he said, excuse me, I need to correct you for a minute. And we didn't pray together again until literally right after we got engaged. We got in the truck, and he was like, okay, we can pray together. And girls, that's just like a moment of intimacy for us. And I think as a girl, you're thinking, oh my gosh, look how much he loves the Lord. Like, he's praying with me, for me. I mean, we have a rule here at the church, guys pray with guys, girls pray with girls. And so that is something that we will 100% teach our kids to stand by, even though it sounds kind of silly, and you think, like, we're just praying together, and it's like, we're supposed to be, but it is like, I mean, you've seen the triangle, you're here, he's here, and you're going to God together. You're not like coming together in the middle and going up to God. So that's something that I'm really glad that he kind of showed me right at the jump. Another thing is what we did at the very, very beginning. I mean, quite literally, I think our first date, we talked about all of the hard questions. I was 21 at the time. He was 27. But we knew we weren't dating to date. We knew we were dating to get married. You know, we were not dating to just have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We were dating to find our spouse. And so we came in, I mean, quite literally, we talked politics. We talked, what's your stance on abortion? We talked, do you drink alcohol? What's your belief on that? I'm trying to think. We talked, do you want kids? Like, all of these things are questions that your marriage and your family and your children are going to ask about. So these are things that you should kind of just get out in the front physically. We said, you know, how far are you going physically? What does that look like to you? I mean, which is a whole nother thing, but it was very much like, absolutely not. We are not messing around. And we didn't, and that's something in here I have, don't mess around, guys, because even though you might want to right now, you're going to have kids someday. We have an 8-year-old who's starting to ask all these questions, and she's like going to eventually look at us and say, what did you guys do? And it's like, we don't want to have to be like, oh, well, actually, we, and let it kind of justify in her mind, well, if my mom and dad did it, so don't mess around. Just don't do it. If you're going to get married, you're going to get to do it later. So you guys are so stoic. I don't like talking about any type of physical things anyways, and you guys are just not giving me anything. Okay, what are some other things that I had on here?
No, and I think, again, just talking about relationships, it was when we got engaged, so that was the first fight that we had, was after we started to have a fight when we were dating. She started to cry. I grew up in a home where you didn't show emotions unless it was like a celebratory because you won. Like, you bottled it up.
And still no tears.
No.
Ever.
She's seen me cry twice.
3 times.
3 times. 3 times.
The dog died. That was the first time I ever saw him
Let's
cry.
be honest, fellas.
Our
Can
dog
we be
died
real?
bawling.
And I couldn't get words out.
It was weeping, and I was like,
yeah. Not
only
when
had
we
her
got
a
married.
year.
Not when we had our kids. None of that. But my dog.
no, yeah, he didn't cry when I walked down the aisle. He didn't cry when we had our children. He hysterically bawled when our dog was put down.
Yep. Yeah, my grandpa died.
And then when he was diagnosed with heart failure. So this is kind of why I'm saying, like, if you are marrying someone, you've got to get into, like, honestly, like, the nitty-gritty of, like, religion, of what you believe. Because if you're marrying someone, if you're dating someone who's like, I don't really know if I believe in healing, and then your husband gets diagnosed with severe heart failure and is told, most people are put on hospice at like, what you're dealing with right now. If I were to be like, he's dying, I'm going to be a widow with 5 kids, that would have messed him up, and he probably would have died, honestly. But we're not that way. We talked about that at the beginning. God heals every time. I mean, we believe in the Holy Spirit. We pray in tongues. We teach our kids to pray in tongues. These are things that, like, get them out early. We've seen people date guys that were of different religions and think, like, maybe they'll come around. They're not coming around for you. Like, and if they do, that's not on their own terms. So these are all things that I think are very important to just, like, lay it all out there early, because then you can know, okay, we're not going to go on a second date. We're not going to go on a third date. We're not going to date for a year or 5 years and end up down the road heartbroken because you have given your heart away because you thought they would change.
And so that was all because of the crying thing. But when we got engaged, she started to cry, and I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. And then she walked off, and I said, where are you going? It's a 1,400 square foot house. It's the house that Cole lives in now. And I'm like, where are you going? You can't go far here. So let's talk about it. And she says, well, I don't want to say something that I regret. And I looked at her and I said, listen, do you see that ring on your finger? That means that we are one. Let's hash it out. There's nothing that you can say that's going to cause me to go anywhere. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm standing. Say what you need to say. Let's deal with it and move on. So again, I think it's just looking at relationships. It's figuring out that person, guarding your heart. But then when you take that step, it's now we're a team. Yeah. Now we're a unit. It's the whole I know I used to try to do it, but you'd ask your mom a question, and then you'd regret it as soon as you asked it because you knew the answer was going to be no. So then it's like, well, I'm going to go ask Dad. That crap doesn't fly in our home. We are one. So for me, it's always, did you ask your mom? Because I know she's going to say no. So it's easier for me. I don't have to be the bad guy. But, and I'm just being very real here. My 8-year-old, I have a hard time telling her no. But really, when it comes down to it, is we are here, that we are a unified front moving forward, knowing the whole world could be against me, my whole world could be shaking, and it doesn't matter because that stable foundation is here. That I know that we are here. Again, when I got diagnosed with that, it was, the doctor said it'd be good if you changed up your diet. So then my psycho wife was like, well, we'll go whole plant-based. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. I enjoy meat.
Yeah, this is a man who said, I don't eat lettuce, I'm not a rabbit.
I don't eat rabbit's food. So I don't eat the food that my food eats. But we got and it was, so our whole family, but she was the spearhead of, we're making this change. Because again, we are a team moving forward. And that's the biggest thing, that you're going to go through stuff. You're going to go through storms. Stuff's going to happen. And for the fellas, we went through something when we first got married. And it was a rough situation all around. And my dad called, and I'm just talking to him, and I said, I need help. What do I do here? And he said, as a man, you are to be an emotional rock. You are immovable emotionally. And then you make sure that there is no fear moving forward. So I have taken that as Bible in my life, and that is my mantra now in our relationship is, my highs aren't high, my lows aren't low, I'm an emotional rock. So no matter what is thrown at us, she can let whatever emotions fly, knowing that I'm going to be the firm foundation, that I'm going to be here no matter what, and we're going to make it through. Because again, we stand on the promises where that is unwavering. God heals every time. Everything I put my hand to prospers. We tithe. So we stand on, he's going to open up the windows of heaven and pour out blessings we can't contain, and he's going to rebuke the devourer from the midst of us. Again, we stand on those. So when we enter a storm, we remind God, no, we tithe, so that devourer is removed. It has no place. We set a deal when we first got married that our house was going to be a house of peace. So me, as the gatekeeper of our home, we don't talk about certain stuff in our house. The relationship she's talking about, if we ever talked about that, one of us would catch it when the other person would start talking. No, we will go outside and talk about it, but that doesn't happen in our home. That I'm that firm on it, that we are making sure that this is a house of peace. Even if a commercial comes on and it's a horror movie or whatever, I will loudly pray in tongues. Louder than whatever the tea is.
Sing pray in tongues.
Yeah, sometimes I sing in tongues. But I'm not that's not allowed in my home. So I'm going to overcome it. And again, we are as a family, that we are a team and we are one moving forward.
And I think something too that like when y'all are dating, in fact, Meg Schaefer said this to me, and I hope she doesn't say it next week. She probably doesn't even remember telling me this, but we got engaged. And the Sunday after we got engaged, she came up to me and she was like, isn't it amazing? At this point, you're not looking for red flags. When you're dating, you're almost looking for red flags. You're trying to find things that not disqualify the person, but like prove that they are who you're supposed to be with. And so once you get engaged, you're not looking for those anymore. That is like, Taylor, as soon as we got engaged, he was like, I want to ride together in the truck alone before we went to our engagement party. And he said, from this moment on, we are a unified front. That's literally the first conversation we had. And my parents are still married, but I had not ever seen, or at least it hadn't been vocalized to me like that, like, we are a team. And so even now when we get in, we rarely fight, truly, honestly, we rarely fight because, again, what's there to fight about? I don't know. But he will be like, we're on the same team. You have to remember we're fighting for the same thing ultimately. So But that started like the moment we got engaged. Before that, it was just keeping kind of an eye out. And yes, honestly, and now that we have kids, I'm like, dating should be so fun. If you are not having fun, you are not doing it right, and that is not the right person. And we went on our second date. We went on our first date. I was living with his sister at the time, which I asked for permission if I could date him, and she said, that is totally your call. Do not come to me when he screws it up. And so we went on our first date, and I was like, I can't do it. It's going to be so weird living with his sister and dating him that, like, I just don't know how that's going to work. Well, then he was like, okay, well, cool. Do you just want to, like, come hang out as friends, and we can, like, go to a concert? And I was like, that's great. Well, it was with another couple, so it was a double date. And this other couple fought, like, the whole night. I mean, you know that couple where it's just like, are you serious? And we were just, like, laughing. We were having so much fun. And it was kind of great for me to see. I'm not really, I know what I want, but I know what I definitely don't want. And so to see that, I was like, okay, I think this is what I want. And again, a year later, we were married. But you're looking for things to kind of validate that this is the person or isn't the person that you want to spend your life with. Because do you realize marriage is for an eternity? Sometimes I look at him, we look at each other, and we're like, do you realize this is forever? What? That's so long.
So long. Okay, and I warned you before, there was not going to be much structure. We just wanted to give you basically what works for us. I think you got to find your non-negotiables. You got to find where you stand, and as individuals. And then when you're married, as a couple. Thank you for the correction. They can hear you. But no, it's that you know those there, and then don't major on the minors. Because the little stuff doesn't matter. I mean, really doesn't matter. It's funny because I was talking with Cole today before, and he brought up, he's heard that fight story before, and I started thinking about driving home. I'm like, I don't even know what we're fighting about. I don't know. I think you asked me to have the house ready when we got home.
Oh my gosh. All I asked was to like have had maybe his mom, my mom, someone come clean the house and make the bed, clean sheets. I found the bed as if a single man had just rolled out of the center of it the day we came home from our honeymoon. So I cried. And yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
So
We're
I guess
great.
that might have been what it was. Okay, let's open it up for questions. We could talk all night, but I want to open it up for questions. So what, if you have one, raise your hand. There's no bad questions. I did not say there's no stupid questions. We'll let you know if it's stupid, but I'm kidding. But you'll know. Go ahead, sorry.
Earlier you mentioned not giving your heart over to the person that you're dating. I was wondering if there's like a rule book on that, or just that if you could elaborate on that, on how not to do that. Well, like a rule book on how not to give your heart over, just a list of things not to do.
Yeah, it's easier for a guy, so I'll let Cass answer this also, but like I'm not dreaming of our wedding. I'm not dreaming of having family. That's not the thought process. I'm thinking, I hope I don't screw it up tonight so I can see her again tomorrow. But for us, there are some things we set in place. One of them is anything intimate was off the table. So praying together, anything physical, like she said, it was off of the table because the reason is you start to be intimate, you give your heart away, then it clouds your judgment. And then you're looking back, because again, I have people that aren't sure, and I'm like, man, take an extra 6 months. It's worth an extra 6 months of dating to not marry somebody wrong and have to deal with that for 50 years. It's not worth it. So take the time you need. But again, for us, it was taking that off. And again, when you start my big thing was when I started to let little things slide, that's when I knew I was starting to give my heart away. And I'm going to, nope, here's where I stand, cutting it off, and not allowing that to come into play.
Girls, we dream. We do have our whole weddings planned before, at least most of us. I know some girls are special and they don't. But I did, and I've had a list of baby names on my phone since I was in high school, and I am not ashamed of it, and we haven't used one. But I think for girls, it's not getting ahead of yourself And that was what I had to do. Like, I mean, truly, before I started dating him, I thought, I'm taking this next relationship. Is this so much louder, or am I just louder? Taking the relationship a day at a time and not getting ahead. We never talked about marriage. I mean, quite literally, never. One time, 6 months into the relationship, I think he said, what's the longest you would date someone? What's the shortest you would date someone? I said, 6 months. I will know you by then. If I do not know that I'm going to marry you by 6 months, I'm leaving. If after 2 years you have not proposed to me, and I'm not saying you, but I said if after 2 years, I'm outies. I am going on. So 7 months in. That is the only thing we talked about. So I think that people can get very comfortable in talking about the next season when that next season might not even be with that person. So you kind of have to keep guardrails on yourself. Yeah, you're not complacent in just dating someone. Right, and taking it a day at a time. I think you, again, going back to being really led by the Holy Spirit, so whether that's, I mean, if it's, every relationship's going to be different. So if you have to tell yourself, like, we end up talking about things that we shouldn't after 11:30 p.m. I'm a very literal person also, so I think for a girl, it's just not getting ahead of yourself as much and like moving into that next season when you're not even sure that that is the person for you is probably the best way to guard your heart for a girl.
I asked the Millers this last week, and I really like their answer, so I want to ask you guys the same thing. But like, what is you?
Nope. We told you we're quite opposite.
What is your method for like when there needs to be forgiveness? When something happens and you need to forgive each other, how do you do it? Like, what's your method for forgiveness, and how do you get through challenges like that?
Is this different in dating and marriage? I'm trying to like. Would you say in dating or in being married?
Being married.
Okay. Being married, if Taylor asks for forgiveness, very few times, again, I'm so serious when we say we rarely fight. I mean, I asked for forgiveness for something the other day. I don't even remember what it was, probably just blaming him for misplacing something that I actually moved. But we are very, I mean, it's easy to forgive him, and I would say probably the same way because we're committed to each other, so it's like, really no big deal to forgive. I mean, obviously, if there's something that's a big deal, that's healing and that's more. But in a marriage, when you're like committed and it's the right person and you guys are both like where you're supposed to be, then forgiveness is kind of easy, I would say.
My biggest thing is when I get up, I hope she knows my heart. So, again, I said it in the last service, but I was like, when we first got married, I was really good about taking out the trash. I was terrible about putting a trash bag back into the trash can.
Still terrible at this. Still terrible at putting the trash bag back.
Okay. But she would get upset about that, and I finally said, please don't think I'm making a conscious decision. And I think she knew that. I'm not making a conscious, let's really get her riled up, so I'm not going to put that. No. I'm a dude, so I thought about 100 different things taking the trash bag out and forgot to come back and put one in. Where, like, if there's something where she asked me, I'm like, absolutely, because I know your heart. And when we're married, I know your heart. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Let's talk it out. Let's hash it out. And obviously that forgiveness is free-flowing because we know each other's heart. We know our intent in our marriage. We know that I'm in it for the long haul, so I'm not trying to make your life a living hell. I promise. I just forget to do this or whatever that is. And again, it's when she talks about that we don't fight that often, it's because we don't major on the minors. And I keep saying that, but it's so true. That, yeah, there's big things, but in reality, she knows my heart and she knows my intent behind things. Hopefully that was as good as the Millers. Anybody else?
So with there being like a 6-year age gap between y'all, was that like an issue when you first started dating? Or because like
I was a child. No, it's more, so there was only 5 years. I know she said 6, but there was 5 years. No, you did. You said, I'm 21 and you're 27. I'm 33. Yeah. But in reality, I think it worked because of the stage of life we were the same. Where guys develop later, I had to get my idiot out of me. I like to call it, the church world calls it building your testimony. Because I grew up in a pastor's home, and that I was building my testimony for a while. But in reality, there wasn't because of the stage of life that we were in, and I think that's what made it work. If that becomes an issue, I would say that's probably, I'm not going to say it's a red flag because I won't give you direction, but it's probably something you look at because there's something else there. But for us, it was never, I forget about it unless, because in my head, like I just turned 39 yesterday, this was the first one that was hard for me because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. In my head, I'm still 25. I can still do the things I used to do, but it hurts a lot longer than it used to. Cole made a joke about creaking knees, and it's, in the mornings, and I get up, it takes me a minute to get my knees moving. I walk very stiff-legged in the morning. But when it comes down to it, it has never felt like that. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's never felt like an age gap. Like one of our kids is adopted. I forget she's adopted until somebody comes up and talks to me about it. I'm like, she is. Because you're graced for that. So when we started dating, then we got engaged and then got married, we're graced for that. To where that gap isn't really there because of the stage of life that we're in, and now we're moving forward as one.
And I will just say, like, I was 21, 22. Most 21-year-old, 22-year-old guys are not ready to get married. So it wasn't that I was looking for someone older, but I'm not going to date parties, like trying to pick up a frat guy. That's, that would have been, so I was looking for someone who had established his life really, and thank God I didn't know Taylor when he was building his testimony, because I've heard the stories and I've seen some photos of how he used to dress then, and it wouldn't have worked out then. So I personally love the age gap. It makes me feel so young, honestly.
Whenever y'all were dating, it's kind of a two-sided question. How often did you guys communicate, like casually outside of important things, I guess, or like texting or on the phone, whatever that may be? And then whenever you guys, outside of going on like dates, movies, stuff like that, how often did you guys spend time together? And if that was different, how did you guys come to some sort of agreement?
So Taylor was, like I said, I was still in college. He was owned his own store, so I would text him because I could, and he couldn't because he was working. So that could have been something I think that a hissy girl would have gotten really worked up about and would have been mad about, but that was when we kind of learned to not. Well, I do that now because he won't respond for hours when I ask him where something is. And we're married now, so I can be that way. But when we were dating, you got to play it cool. Honestly, like I was like, I'm not going to text him, I'm not going to be up his rear. Like if a girl's up your rear, then that's scary. And it's not going to go away. And we hung out, though, I feel like quite a bit. Even if we weren't texting nonstop, we rarely talked on the phone. We are still to this day. If I'm out of town, if he's out of town, we're getting an I love you text, and we are really not talking at all other than that. We just are very low maintenance and needing to, to communicate constantly. But we would go on dates, and we'd hang out at each other's houses. I would say probably almost every day.
But we had boundaries. So
Yeah.
the reason you're asking, I'm not going to project the reason you're asking, but it never got to be too much because there were boundaries set.
Well, and we had our own things going.
Yeah, you have your own life. I think realizing that, like, if she would have been needy, that would have not have worked. Because again, I'm like I knew what I wanted to do in life, so I was driven towards that. So it's when I'm working. And that has been an easy fit, because then I called her the other day about, I don't even remember why I called, and she's like, why are you calling me? Something wrong? I'm like, nope, just checking in. Trying to be intentional, honey. But no, it's that I didn't project, and I would say the same for her, she didn't project these expectations on me that I didn't know. Because again, if I'm trying to force it, that lasts so long. So if it needed to be needy, it's not going to work. It was natural. We let it flow, and we let two individuals come in and be one.
So when did you guys know you had found your person, and what did that realization look like?
First moment I saw her. That's a lie. My mom told me. I'm not joking. I'm not saying it to be funny. My mom told me. I don't remember how it played out, but we had started dating. Yeah.
You can tell.
No. Yeah, so she went to my little sister's cheer competition. My mom called me and she said, she's the one, so just be prepared for that. And so for me, after that, she's like the Holy Spirit for me. Like, she would call me when I was doing something wrong, and she'd be like, you better stop doing whatever you're doing. I'm like, you don't even know what I'm doing. How do you know that? And then I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. So that was it, but it was, for me, it was easy because and I don't know how to explain it, but I knew it. Yeah, there was a piece to it for sure. And always follow your peace. If you have a question, pump the brakes. Run like hell. Get away. Don't go unless you have a piece.
We said I love you 2 months into dating. So first, I was going to get to that. It was an accident, and I didn't find out until I got home later that night. My mom was like, so Taylor was like, I'm falling in love with you. And I said, I love you too. And I went home and told my mom, and she goes, those are not the same thing. So, and my family, we grew up saying, like, if we're leaving the room, I love you. If we're jumping in the car, gonna see him in 5 minutes, love you. Everything's love you. His family, I don't think they said I love you until I came into the family. And I should get on that too. When we say, like, you're not committed until you're engaged, I quite literally wasn't allowed, like, on family vacations. I wasn't allowed to take Christmas pictures with them. I was so offended, not really offended by this, couldn't sit on the front row with them at church. And I was like, just cannot believe that. And now that I have kids and we've been married 10 years, I'm like, I get it. Because, again, you're not married until you're married. So I knew very quickly that I was going to marry him, or that I loved him. If he would have had me, I just knew. And that was something that I went into I had dated before, and I was like, there was just never a peace. And I thought, that is what I'm looking for. If there is a peace here, and I'm taking it a day at a time, and communication is flowing, and all of these things, that he's checking the list that I have, it was just natural. I just knew. And so when he finally expressed how he was feeling about me in the form of falling in love with you, I was like, this is it. We're getting married. But again, we did not talk about it after that. But it was a total surprise. I actually said no. When he asked me to marry him, I said no. And he said, is no your answer? And I was like, no, I'm just shocked. Yeah, we were duck hunting when we got engaged, guys. Hadn't been before, haven't been since. And we weren't even really duck hunting. Come to find out, you don't duck hunt at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You duck hunt in the morning and the evening. So shows how much I knew, but I was down. I like to call myself an adaptable gal. Taylor likes to make fun of that, but anyways, it was pretty soon in. I just knew he was the one.
How do you know the difference in love? Like you just said, how do you know the difference in loving someone and then like knowing it's your person?
I think the difference is maybe like, at least in a relationship, there's caring for someone, like deeply caring for someone. My past relationships, I cared for those people deeply. Never said I love you, cared for them so much. But a love is like a commitment. And so I knew I was not going to say I love you to someone until I knew that that was like, I loved them. I mean, I am committing my love to you. Which sounds silly even then because it was 2 months in and we weren't engaged yet. So sometimes when people are like, I didn't say I love you until I got engaged. Abigail and Simone, sorry if I just, but I'm like, I respect that. Well, now they know, and I wish that I would have done that. Yeah, good job. I wish I would have done that because I think that can kind of cloud at least a girl's vision just as much as like physical could maybe cloud a guy's vision, or not vision, but I don't know, clarity. Just it causes blurriness. So I think that you have to really be able to discern if you're caring for them deeply, and wanting something so badly for them, and then like loving them for who they are, who they're going to be, who they can be for you. I think that is kind of the difference in what you're asking, maybe.
We got one more question.
One more question. And it's going to be quick because we don't go over 75 minutes. Right, Heather? That's our drop dead time.
This should be a pretty easy one to answer, but Pastor Taylor, what inspired your style change from Jordans and jerseys to, boots and cowboy hats?
Life. No. You're trying to find yourself, okay, son? So you go through life, you're trying to find yourself. No. Okay. It was easy. Will you stop? There was a reason that they don't. I tried everything, okay? Let's be honest. Big Chaco fan. Very versatile shoes. You're prepared for anything. Need to relax? Great. You need to run through a river? Great. Doesn't matter. Okay. Are we done? Yeah. It's a lot of years to let it go. But no, it was, I don't know what made the jump. Life. I don't know what to say. I run cattle now, so I can't say all hat, no cowboy is all I have to say now. So joke's on you, Cassidy, for making fun of all my stuff. Cole, can you finish this? Because I feel like we're going downhill pretty quick, and I'm going to be the focal point, so I would prefer not to be. Thank you guys very much.